Discuss the nature and characteristic of authentic assessment and related terms. The idea of using creative learning experience to test students' skills and knowledge in realistic situations is called authentic assessment. Authentic assessment measures student success in a way that's relevant to the skills required of them once they finish your course or degree program. Simply put, an authentic assessment is one that requires students to apply what they've learned in a new complex circumstance or situation, or the students are asked to perform real-world tasks that demonstrate meaningful application of essential knowledge and skills. To be able to understand what authentic is. A task is considered authentic when the students are asked to construct their own responses rather than to select from ones presented at the task replicates challenge faced in the real world. Performance or the task shall demonstrate or partly demonstrate successful of one or more standards. In summary of characteristic of authentic assessment, it may resemble real-world tasks and activities can be structured as written or oral assessment, completed individually in pairs or in groups, often presented as ill-structured problem with no right answers. Ask students to communicate their knowledge orally or writing to a specific audience and for a specific purpose. Usually, ask students to address professional or lay audience.
Good day everyone! For this video, I want to discuss to you the continuation of characteristic of authentic assessment. First is, they are realistic in nature. They propose a scenario that makes sense something that could really happen. They shall pose an interesting problem that can be visualized and understood.
So next is, they should require creativity and resourcefulness. The student should have to think outside the box a little to find answer. So third characteristic is, they should be similar to tests that show up in real life. The abilities tested should be those same abilities that will be called workplace and marketplace. The fourth characteristic is, they should be complex enough that the student must apply a variety of skills and information seeking methods in order to reach the solution. And the fifth characteristic is, they should be reiterative, in that the student should have feedback available and should be able to try different approaches as they search for solutions. In addition, there should be ways to refine and improve their approach, looking not just for a right answer, but for optional approaches and best practices. Last characteristic is, they should be action-oriented. They should require that the student actually perform some task. The most effective of the authentic assessment involve multiple learning modalities and complex application of different types of skills. Authentic assessment is the idea of using creative learning experiences to test student skills and knowledge in realistic situations. It measures student success in a way that's relevant to the skill required of them once they finish your course or degree program. In this type of assessment, we have the chance to see how students apply their learning to construct meaning to what's been taught. To assess students, we need to assess them by teaching and giving tests. This is the opportunity by what we mean to construct. In 21st century learning, measuring students by what they know is not enough to apply it into action, like performing it individually. Putting this simple, it is helpful to use authentic assessment. So, according to our curriculum, educators define authentic assessment as an approach to measure student performance in a direct, relevant way to see if the learning objectives were met. Educators use projects such as reports, journals, speech, videos, and interviews with the student to measure their understanding of the subject material. This will motivate learners to create a new knowledge. To give an example, I will present myself as a figure. Currently, I am a second-year college student with the course of Bachelor of Secondary Education, major in Social Studies. As a learner, I do a lot of written works, projects, activities, research, and etc. It's the new curriculum that the teacher will act as a facilitator and the student will act as a lecturer who will perform and discuss the lesson. In relation to authentic assessment, the individual output I did from being mandated to curriculum to apply the real world as a learner. For me, I enjoy motivated and executed individually to show our skills and capacity to be better into the future. Therefore, authentic assessment is more applicable than traditional assessment, presenting the facts that the student exert more efforts like lecturing or measuring by pen. To relate in the real world, I will give an quotation that we always heard, which is action speak louder than words. This quotation is what authentic assessment do, and the importance of this assessment is to teach us how they will work within the ability and strategy we have to measure the gap of learning for each student. It is a good tool that we have as of now.
So, traditional assessment are the tests that taken with the paper and the pencil that are usually true or false, matching or the multiple choice. It evaluates the learning and retaining the capacity of a child. It analyzes how much of the provided material or the syllabus has been acquired by the student. It also helps the educators or the teachers to compare the performance of the different students. So, traditional assessment are the curriculum drives the assessment. So, the body of the knowledge is determined first. That knowledge becomes the curriculum that is delivered. Subsequently, these assessments are developed and administered to determine if the acquisition of the curriculum is occurred.
I will discuss now the difference between authentic and traditional assessment. My topic is authentic assessment and how it is differ from traditional assessment. To define authentic assessment, so this assessment is the idea of using creative learning experiences to test the skills of the students and their knowledge in realistic situations. It measures student success in a way that's relevant to the skill acquired to them. Once they finish your course or degree program, in this type of assessment, we have the chance to see how students applied their learning to construct meaning to what they've been taught. To assess students, we need to assess them by teaching and giving tests. This is the opportunity by what we mean to construct. In 21st century learning, measuring students by what they noted is not enough to apply it into the real world because some of them didn't know to put it into action like performing it individually. Putting this simple, is it helpful to use authentic assessment? According to curriculum, educators define authentic assessment as an approach to measure student performance in a direct, relevant way to see if the learning objectives were met. Educators might use projects such as reports, journals, speeches, videos, and interviews with the students to measure their understanding of the subject material. This will motivate the learners to create a new knowledge. To give an example, I will present myself as a figure. Currently, I am a second year college student with a course of Bachelor of Secondary Education, major in Social Studies. As a learner, I do a lot of written works, projects, activities research, etc. by myself. Is the condition of the new curriculum that the teacher will act as a facilitator and the students will act as a lecturer who will perform and discuss the lessons. In relation to authentic assessment, the individual output I did from being mandated to new curriculum applied to the real world as a learner. For me, I enjoyed, motivated, and excited to learn. If the given task is executed individually, to show our skill and capacity to be better into the future. Therefore, authentic assessment is more applicable than traditional assessment, presenting the facts that the students exert more efforts, like lecturing or measuring by pen, to relate into the real world. I will give a quotation that we always heard, which is action speaks louder than words. This quotation is what authentic assessment do, and the importance of this assessment is to teach us how do we work within the ability and strategy we have to measure the gap of learning for each students. It is a good tool that we have as of now. Also, the fact that authentic assessment is different to traditional in applying it to the real world. In real world, authentic assessment will see how the knowledge is applied to situation like putting yourself in the field or role play. The learning to see the reality in life and easily adapt things in the environment if it applies to the real world. The traditional doesn't look into actual or demonstration learning because the test of response or function of the mind is measured and the capacity to think and interpret the situation by expressing in words. These two things brings an idea on how the students will put the learning into action and how they perform very well. Also, the importance of distinguishing these assessments give analyzation of how the teacher will construct the syllabus or lesson plan that is effective for them.
Good day everyone, I'm here and Marcus to discuss to you about the importance and application of authentic assessment. So, authentic assessment is grounded in theoretical best practices for teaching and learning outcomes. Authentic assessment empowers students to take charge of their own learning process. It provides students with ample opportunity to engage in authentic tasks to develop, use, and extend their knowledge and competencies. So, authentic assessment is an approach to measure students' performance in a direct, relevant way to see if the learning objectives were met. Moreover, authentic assessment helps students analyze what they've learned and apply the knowledge that students acquired, which this type of assessment is needed. An excellent means of evaluating a student's knowledge set by the teachers. So, authentic assessment gives more emphasis on how students will apply his or her knowledge, which it becomes more effective for the student did not only learn and know what is in the context, but also student competency becomes more efficient because the students are able to apply the knowledge and skills in real life setting, wherein it helps students to improve and develop their maximum potential. And as a student, it is indeed important to demonstrate the knowledge that we have acquired in our subjects for us to be more progressive and productive and applying our learning appropriately. So that's it for my part in this discussion, and now Marquis will be discussing about her part, and thank you for listening and thank you for watching.
In addition, authentic assessment gives more emphasis on how a student will apply his or her knowledge, which it becomes more efficient for the student did not only learn and know what is in the context, but also student competency becomes more efficient because students are able to apply the knowledge and skills in real life setting, wherein it helps students to improve and develop their maximum potential. Authentic assessment applies to the real world, wherein those traits train them to be responsible in our society. The importance of this assessment is to provide learning that will push them to create. It means they will not incline only on lectures, but they are composing, revising, and constructing to a new idea that better than usual. Therefore, the importance of this assessment is giving us initiative to change and create. I learned that authentic assessment will gain innovation, own judgment, and better teaching in the next generation. And as a student, it is indeed important to demonstrate the knowledge that we have acquired in our subjects for us to be more progressive and productive in applying our learning appropriately. And that's the end of our report. Thank you.
Lesson D. Make connections between the principles of high-quality assessment and the development and use of authentic assessment techniques and tools within and across teaching areas. The data gathered from assessments given throughout the learning process give educators the information they need to adjust their instruction. High-quality assessments are balanced to provide instructors with ongoing feedback about student progress. It should be part of an ongoing conversation that helps all students get exactly what they need to meet learning standards. High-quality assessment can be achieved if evaluation is clearly stated objectives. It should be comprehensive and should be cooperative. Teachers need powerful assessment instruments. That data is only useful if the assessment forms and items are high quality in both content and construction. If the assessment instrument is poorly constructed, the student data will be flawed, and teachers will have an inaccurate understanding of what the students know and still need to learn. So if we connect high-quality assessment and authentic assessment, we can know or inform us where learners needs to focus on when it comes to their knowledge and skills. It will provide an actionable information to inform curriculum to meet the learner's needs.
High-quality assessment takes the massive quantities of performance data and translate that into meaningful, actionable reports that pinpoint current student progress, predict future achievements, and inform instruction. For teaching areas, high-quality assessment and authentic assessment techniques helping students for a real-time change, of course, to meet students' needs. These two variables are standards-based assessments for our subjects and different stages of learning. To gain more knowledge and discover new ideas of learning, can it be an advantage to learn the connection between these assessments for teaching areas that are tools to the quality of education? How does it beneficial for our education system? Therefore, principles of high-quality assessment and authentic assessment techniques are very related to standard-based assessment on how teachers will give learning and gather their learning by different techniques such as practicality and creating an outputs out of discussion to apply it into the real world.
If we have these two assessments, it will help us correct our flaws and go a step higher. Assessments bridges teaching and learning. Assessments leads us towards learning best and teaching best.
My topic is to make connections between the principles of high-quality assessment and the development and use of authentic assessment techniques and tools within and across teaching areas. High-quality assessment takes the massive quantities of performance data and translates that into meaningful, actionable reports that pinpoint current student progress, predict future achievement, and inform instruction. Assessment tools are used for different assessment methods and are more specific. For example, posters, essays, exams, interviews, and etc. and can be used across a number of assessment methods. Also, the tools used to mark assessments rubrics can be considered as assessment tools. There are 5 principles of assessment such as practicality, reliability, validity, authenticity, and washback. It helps the learner to easily do the task. Assessment tools also helps the educators in which tools is appropriate for that lesson and the learning outcomes. For example, if the topic is about finding the area of a quadrilateral, the educator needs to give situation and problems in which the formulas can be used. If you use high quality assessment, you will use and develop the authentic assessment techniques and tools which is appropriate for the learning outcomes of the topic. High quality assessment can be used in assessing different authentic assessment techniques and tools to create another data conclusion and can be used to improve some aspects of the education.